If you're like most fans, you went into hibernation in the offseason. But now we're back, and we're going to take a look at the offseason transactions that have the biggest fantasy impact. Coming up next. Hello everyone, I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman, and we are the Fantasy Football Consultants. And Eric, this is kind of a fun show because, look, the reality is, wouldn't it be easy if none of the players moved and none of the coaches moved and everything stayed the same and prognostication just became a breeze? But the reality is it isn't that way. There's a lot of moving pawns on that chessboard, and we can help the viewer figure out what has the most fantasy impact.
Yeah, otherwise you just take in last year's stats and they're going to be the next year's stats.
And there it is.
You don't need us.
Ooh, I didn't like that last time. So let's talk about it. The number one move with the biggest fantasy impact had to be Kirk Cousins moving from Washington to Minnesota. So Minnesota's got a new signal caller, Eric, and for the privilege, they put 3 years, $84 million, making him at the time clearly one of the top quarterbacks in the league, since been surpassed by a few. What does Kirk Cousins do to deserve that? Eric, over the last 3 years, he's averaged almost 4,500 yards passing. And by the way, rushing for 5 touchdowns, throwing for 27 touchdowns per year. Eric, that's literally top 7 fantasy QB stats. And now he goes to a better situation. Why? Because he has a better supporting cast. Because he's got Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, who are, for fantasy purposes, top 30 picks. There's nobody like that in Washington. They're not even for fantasy purposes of a top 40 pick. Minnesota also has Dalvin Cook, which is going to be a better running back to keep defenses honest. They do have a shaky offensive line. Guess what? So did Washington, so that's a wash. Now, Minnesota's got a better defense. That's going to be a little bit of a detriment to the volume. Why? Because they're going to be ahead and they'll run more late in the game. Yeah, I get all that. The better situation wins out. This is really great for Kirk Cousins. He should do even better in 2018 than he has in the previous years.
Sounds good. So number 2 on our list of the biggest transactions that have a fantasy impact is Allen Robinson of the Chicago Bears. The Bears opened up the paycheck, 3 years, $42 million. And why did they do that? Because they see him as their number 1 receiver. Why? Because guess what? All they have is Taylor Gabriel and the rookie they just drafted, Anthony Miller. So Mitch Trubisky is going to be targeting Allen Robinson. I don't know as much as back in 2016. Allen Robinson had 153 targets. What was a little concerning, he only connected on 73 of those, but maybe that has a little bit to do with Blake Bortles. We're a little concerned about his health because he's coming off an ACL, but overall, I'm bullish on Allen Robinson this year.
Yeah, and he gets to take over that Kevin White role. The Bears still have Kevin White, but he just never performed, and so now they're bringing in Allen Robinson. So number 3 on the list is Brandon Cooks. Great talent. Goes from an all-world quarterback in Tom Brady, because of course he moved for the New England Patriots to the Los Angeles Rams. Goes from Tom Brady to Jared Goff. I went to Cal, huge Cal fan. I'd like to say Jared Goff is otherworldly. He's not yet, but there's more to like in this situation than meets the eye. He replaces Sammy Watkins, a guy who has been on the back of a milk carton for the last year. Brutally underutilized, right? But they did something funny with Cooks. They gave him a 5-year, $80 million contract. It does have essentially a 1-year opt-out. So if he doesn't perform, it can be a 1-year contract, but you don't give somebody $5 and $80 unless you are going to feed him the target, something I admit they never did to Watkins. In order for this move to make sense, in order for the contract to make sense, Jared Goff has got to throw the ball downfield. The one good news is he did that very, very well at Cal. He's got the skill set. Can they capitalize on it is the big question, but if they do, Brandon Cooks is a true talent. And honestly, I think he goes goes to a better situation with the Rams than he did with the Patriots.
Whoa, surprising. So he had Drew Brees throwing to him, then he went to Tom Brady, now he goes to Jared Goff, and you think it's a better situation.
I really do.
Time will tell. We will see. Number 4 on the list is someone who's not going to a better situation, is Jarvis Landry. The winless Cleveland Browns opened up their checkbook to pay him $75 million over 5 years, similar to the Cooks contract. Why would the Browns do this? Well, I'll give you the good news on Jarvis Landry. He had 112 catches last year with the Dolphins. That's extremely impressive, but here's the thing. This year, he's on a new team. He's in a new system. He's the new quarterback, and he has a new role. He's not even certain to be the number 1 receiver on the Browns because they have Josh Gordon. So, you know what? Landry went out and tried to argue that he is not going to a bad team. The Browns are going to be really good this year. In fact, this was the quote. He said, "I know for sure we are definitely a playoff caliber team."
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
What you said.
The Browns aren't going to make the playoffs. So, but that's
They will be better.
They will be better
than 0-16.
Yeah, one way but up.
You heard it here first.
So look for a dip in Jarvis Landry's production.
Yeah, Josh Gordon, Corey Coleman, and of course Landry. That's a lot of mouths to feed in a relatively mediocre passing game. So number 5, Jerick McKinnon goes from the Minnesota Vikings to my San Francisco 49ers. Boy, Jerick McKinnon, he's one of those all-world talents that just hasn't yet shown that kind of production on the field. Here's the thing. I was shocked when the Niners offered him 4 years, $30 million. I couldn't believe it.
I can't believe it. I just don't believe it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I just 4 years, $30 million, and it's not like it's a 1-year opt-out contract like Brandon Woods got. This is 4 years, legit $30 million for a guy who has 4 yards per carry. In case you're scoring at home, that is not good for a starting running back in the NFL. 5 yards per touch, meaning he didn't do much better when he caught passes. Breaking tackles in the open field is supposed to be his strength. He clearly hasn't shown it yet in the NFL. Why pay so much money? And the answer is, well, because they don't have anybody else. That's why, and they think he's really good, right? But the reality is, all they have is another running back, Matt Breida, who they tried last year and they weren't terribly pleased with. So the bottom line is, this is a volume play, folks. Do I think he's going to do any better in San Francisco? No, there's no reason to think he's going to do any better, but he's going to get a lot, and I mean a lot more volume. He doesn't have the competition in San Francisco like he did in Minnesota. Can you live with 4 yards per carry if he totes the rock 25 times? Well, if I do the math, that's 100 yards a game. Yes, I can probably live with that. That's why his value goes way up in San Francisco versus what it was in Minnesota.
Jerick McKinnon does a great job catching the ball, but the problem last year in Minnesota was after Dalvin Cook went down, a lot of fans picked him up hoping he was going to be the key back, not only for carries and catches, but for the goal line, and he lost that to Latavius Murray last year.
Yeah, he did.
Do you think that'll happen to him?
No, because the running backs don't have a Latavius Murray. The only other running back of any real note on the roster is Matt Breida. Matt Breida is smaller than Jerick McKinnon is. Matt Breida has not ever gotten the goal line carries. Probably Kyle Juszczyk is more of a risk to that than Matt Breida is. Kyle Juszczyk is one of the smallest fullbacks in the league. He's not going to get them either. Look, this guy's going to be a 3-down territory, whether it's outside or inside the 20s. He's going to get the volume, and that's what you're depending on for McKinnon.
Alrighty, so number 6 on our list is Jimmy Graham. The Green Bay Packers spent $30 million over 3 years to get Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham last year took a real dip in his production on Seattle. However, he still was a force around the goal line. He led all tight ends with 10 TDs, and I expect that to continue in Green Bay and maybe even get more than 10 TDs because how much the Packers love to throw the ball when they get close to the goal line. Mm-hmm. And Jordy Nelson is a Raider. He's not on the Packers anymore, so there's going to be tons of opportunity. Now, what will make Graham not just a good pick, but a great pick is to the extent that he can be heavy into the Packers offense, not just around the goal line, but on the entire field, which he was not in Seattle. I do think the chances are good in Green Bay.
Next, we're up to number 7, Sammy Watkins, the aforementioned milk carton guy. What did you hear from Sammy Watkins last year? Exactly.
Crickets.
Sorry to belabor the point, folks, but there you have it. He goes from the Rams to the Chiefs. I mean, anything's got to be better than the Rams, right? Seriously, brutally underutilized. 70 targets! 70! I mean, for God's sakes, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp both did better than that. By the way, so did Todd Gurley. That's not going to happen with Brandon Cooks, by the way. But talking about Sammy Watkins, this guy still does actually have a huge skill set. He is one of those rare receivers that's got a body type for the red zone, and yet the speed to run a fly pattern. That's pretty rare in the NFL. Here's the problem. The fly pattern's owned in KC by some guy named Tyreek Hill, who I think is pretty fast. Red zone, he's going to have to compete with Travis Kelce. Actually, he'll probably have to compete with Kareem Hunt too, and that's going to be a problem. But I'll tell you what, Sammy Watkins, that's a lot of mouths to feed in KC, and this was clearly not the best landing spot for him. But the reality is this: if he can carve out a niche for himself in Kansas City, and 3 years, $48 million, $16 million a year, he darn well better be able to. He'll do okay. He'll certainly be an improvement over last year. It's just too bad he couldn't have landed on a team that needed a number 1 receiver.
Number 8 on our list is Michael Crabtree, who goes to the Ravens, who offered him over 3 years, $21 million. It's like a new presidential cabinet has come in among the wide receivers. Out is Mike Wallace. Out is Jeremy Maclin. And now in comes Michael Crabtree, who leads a group including Willie Snead and John Brown. But Crabtree is clearly the class of that group. He will be the number 1 receiver. And the thing I like about Crabtree is he does have a nose for the end zone. When he was with the Raiders for over the last 2 years, 12 of 23 passes inside the 10, he converted for touchdowns.
Yeah, and the 2-point conversions too. I mean, They love him near the goal line. And let's face it, touchdowns pay the fantasy bills, folks. So real good news for him. Down at number 9, Dion Lewis. Surprising talent. I'm not sure that folks realize how talented Dion Lewis is. Dion, well, of course, if you watch the 2 Super Bowls, but look, this guy, almost 4.5 yards per carry, tremendous catching passes. Unfortunately for him, he goes to Houston and they have Derrick Henry. Look, Tennessee, excuse me, and they have Derrick Henry. Look, here's the deal, folks. Derrick Henry's not going to seed the field on 1st and 2nd downs. This is a 3rd down pass catching play. He's not going to get the goal line work as Derrick Henry gets that too. Boy, if anything ever happens to him, Dion Lewis, despite his diminutive size, can be the number 1 running back and would be extremely valuable, but he has somebody in the way, and until and unless that goes away, the reality is he's just not that viable for fantasy purposes.
Watch your back
in Tennessee.
Watch your back to Derrick Henry.
Exactly.
So
it's too bad because he's a great talent.
Our last one on the list, number 10, is Carlos Hyde. We'll go over it really quickly. He goes to the Cleveland Browns, and he inherits a 3 running back monster committee. The spot is already carved down for 3rd down, and the passing back is going to be Duke Johnson. That means all the other carries on 1st and 2nd down are going to be split among Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb. Who wins that? My prediction is at the start of the season, it's going to be Carlos Hyde. However, my concern is to the extent he struggles, or they want to give, or the team overall struggles, and you know my opinion of that the Browns are not a playoff caliber team, they're going to go to Nick Chubb. And here's another concern I have about Carlos Hyde. The guy is not great in short yardage situations. Last year with the Niners, in 20 chances to just get a single yard was needed, whether it be the goal line or 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. He only was successful half the time, 10 out of those 20. So he could easily lose goal line carries to Nick Chubb, who's bigger and stronger than he is.
Absolutely.
So with that, we will wrap wrap up this video with our 10 transactions that were big in the off season. Please, if you enjoyed the content, go ahead and give it a like. And if you haven't yet, hit the red subscriber button, followed by the bell icon to be notified of all our future videos. And until the next video, we will see you next time.
See you next time.